Hello and welcome to our third week in 120 Anatomy. Anatomy and Physiology of the Ear. Here we are. Today we're set to kind of look at the middle ear. We'll spend a couple of weeks at least on the middle ear. Now, where have we gone so far? And I also understand we are a little bit ahead of the schedule here in anatomy, because I hear that you're still kind of working on Unit 2, which is the outer ear, and here we are now moving on to the middle ear. That's okay in a way. It's just, it's better to be ahead than to be behind. But it's also good to know that we've got some time on our side. So, where have we gone so far? We covered in week 1 an overview of the whole ding-dong ear, from outer to middle to inner, to the eighth nerve, to the brain. And these are kind of the things I would really mark down. I would jot this down somewhere in your notes. Now, hopefully, you have your notes of the middle ear printed up and sitting right beside you. If you don't, stop the recording here, get them, and then print them, and then start the recording again, okay? Or from where you left off, because the notes beside you are absolutely critical. Just like they are in acoustics, they are here too. So the first week, now let's look at the physiology, the whole thing. In fact, I think I'll share screen with you and give you an overview from the bird's eye view that I have regarding this. So here we are. See that? See that little box popping up there? This is the overview that I've got, that we're looking at the course. Unit 1, overview of the ear. Notes. Unit 2, overview of the ear, PowerPoint. And when you're looking at here's Unit 2, outer ear, anatomy and physiology, PowerPoint, outer ear, anatomy and physiology. Unit 3, middle ear, anatomy, and again, the blue is always the notes, the red's always the corresponding PowerPoint. And then look at Unit 4 and 5, because now we're breaking up the anatomy from the physiology. We spent a couple of weeks at least on the anatomy, and then a couple of weeks on the physiology. And then we spend a couple of weeks on the eighth nerve and central auditory nervous system. So again, when we're looking at the overview of the ear, if I pull up that particular PowerPoint, just wanted to give us all our reckoning as to where we are, we're really now concentrating on the middle ear. We covered the outer ear, and of course the biggest part of the coverage of the outer ear was really two things. When you're looking at the outer ear anatomy and physiology, one of the biggest things to remember about that is this quarter wave resonator business, the resonance of the outer ear and its relevance to speech. It's very important to know that. This is a real breakdown of this. Okay, when you're looking at this, the T is for total, and look where the resonance is right over, 2700 hertz. Okay, this one's just more detailed. Resonance of your outer ear canal and resonance of your concha bowl of your outer ear. All these resonances together give you that T for total. And look what it's worth, about 20 dB. Same in here. Okay, so this is a simplified view, this is a complicated view, but that's the biggest part of the physiology of the outer ear. Another thing to really remember about the outer ear anatomy and physiology is regarding the occlusion effect. So make sure you really have that down too. So you've got the physiology of the outer ear, and it's all about that quarter wave resonator. And then the next section to finish the outer ear was the occlusion effect. Big time, okay? Occlusion effect. So make sure you have an understanding of that, because it'll keep coming up in hearing aids. When you plug up a canal with a hearing aid, your own voice will sound louder. Plug your own ear and talk. It will do that. And I even think I demonstrated the Bing tuning fork test to you last week, and I'll do so again. The Bing tuning fork test. Stop sharing and show. Tuning fork. Ding the tuning fork. Hold it behind my ear. Put it on that bone behind your ear. Put your finger behind your ear. Feel that round bone. Put the tuning fork on that. Plug your ear. Gets louder. Unplug. Softer. Louder. Softer. That shows the occlusion effect. And what is the occlusion effect in words? Bone-conducted sounds, sounds coming through the bone, increase when your ear is plugged. And it's mostly pronounced for low frequencies because of the mass of your skull. And I may have even had you write it down in these notes, but there's 5 little pieces to it. Low frequency, and then I had you write bone-conducted sound of your voice resonate with the mass of your skull. So you're talking, and the lows from your voice, ah, ooh, ee, everything from your larynx, your voice, resonates the bone of your skull, which in turn vibrates the cartilaginous portion of your ear canal. And plugging your ear prevents that from escaping. So you don't even need a tuning fork to do the Bing tuning fork test. You can just talk and plug your ear. And if you say, ooh, and plug your ear, go ahead, do that. Ooh, say M. Voice is louder when your ear is plugged. Now say the letter S. It's not as pronounced. It's more pronounced for low frequency sounds. So low frequency, bone-conducted sounds resonate the mass of your skull, which in turn vibrates the cartilaginous portion. Plugging your ear prevents that from escaping. The 5 little pieces of the occlusion effect. And the lay definition is your own voice is louder when your ear is plugged. Why is that important? Because the biggest complaint about hearing aid usage is background noise. The second biggest complaint about hearing aid usage is the occlusion effect. That's why holes are put into a hearing aid called a vent to reduce the occlusion effect. Okay, you'll be learning more about vents in hearing aids in future courses. Great. Let's share screen now and talk about the middle ear. We'll move on toward the middle ear. Middle ear anatomy, we can spend at least 2 weeks on this. We've got time, okay? Because your midterm, I don't believe, is till early March. So we've got the month of February to play. We got some extra time here. And I just wanted to really review the outer ear, where we've come so far and where we will go. Okay. Middle ear anatomy and physiology. Here we have it. There it is in your textbook, Fundamentals, Hearing Science Fundamentals. That's what you'd read about in terms of the middle ear. Martin has stuff in the middle ear, but don't trust my chapter 10 here because that may not really be any. My edition of Martin may be older than yours, so you can find that in the table of contents fairly easily on your own looking in Martin. So I would make sure you look at your textbooks, read what's in them that way that pertains to the middle ear, and then follow these Zoom sessions and notes very carefully. So here we go. The middle ear consists of the inner skin of your tympanic membrane. Remember, your eardrum has 3 layers, an outer, a middle, and an inner layer. The outer layer is consistent with skin from the outer ear canal. The middle layer is a tough, almost like a spider web, like a fibrous, like spokes in a bicycle tire. That's how you can think about the middle layer of your eardrum. It's the tough, fibrous layer that really makes your eardrum tight. Oh, it makes your eardrum stiff. And stiffness, what does it resonate with? High frequencies. The middle ear doesn't have much mass. The bones of your middle ear, the three smallest bones of the body. So there's not much mass. There's not much resistance offered by the middle ear either. It's all about stiffness. And what makes your middle ear stiff is that fibrous middle layer of your tympanic membrane or eardrum. Very good. All righty then. Here we go. What else is unique about the, oh yeah, so that then you have that middle layer, and then the inner layer of your eardrum is consistent with the skin or the tissue that lines your middle ear space. All right, so let's see if we have a picture of that. We got your outer ear anatomy here. There's the stuff here. Here's your eardrum with 3 layers. There's the annulus, pars tensa, the umbo, okay? You can see the ear canal as labeled number 1 in yellow. Layer of, that would be the layer of the outer layer. Your middle layer is shown in black. The fibrous layer, it's like the spokes of a wheel. And then this is kind of like a schematic of your middle ear space without the bones or anything in it. So the inner layer of your eardrum is consistent with the tissue that lines the whole middle ear space. It's the slimy layer. So the mucous membrane. All right, good. Now we will go to the notes of the middle ear again. What else is unique about the middle ear? The middle ear space is closed. It's a closed room, slightly smaller than a sugar cube, about the size of the tip of your finger. It's just a closed space, and the space is lined with mucus layer surrounded by porous mastoid bone. Let's see if we can find a picture of that. I'm sure we can. You've seen this one before. So let's look at it. Here, I'll click on it so that it gets bigger. There, that's better. Okay, so ear canal, eardrum, shaped like a speaker, like a cone. There's the umbo. Notice again that the manubrium of the malleus does not cover the entire back of the eardrum, just the top half. It ends at the middle of your drum, the umbo. This would be the hammer part, the malleus. This would be the manubrium, the handle, the manubrium of the malleus. The incus has 2 main parts as well, a short process and a long process. The stapes, or stirrup, has 3 main parts, the foot plate, and these arches called the crura, C-R-U-R-A, crura, and the neck. The neck of the stapes, the crura, and the foot plate. Long process, short process of the incus, and the manubrium of the malleus. And notice that the entire skin, or whatever, the tissue that lines the middle ear space is a mucus layer, kind of wet. This is all filled with air, and it is closed. It's closed because the eustachian tube is normally closed. And as you recall, the eustachian tube goes down to the back of your throat. And if you would ever put your fingers down your throat, which would make you gag, okay, but if you go to the roof of your mouth, and if you were able to put your finger, you would notice that there's 2 holes near the back of your mouth on the roof of your mouth. And those are the openings to your eustachian tubes, right by your tonsils, just above your tonsils. So those are normally closed, and when you swallow, they open temporarily, just while you swallow, or while you yawn, or if you blow your nose really hard and force them open. That's why I keep saying the middle ear space is closed. This has a big deal because you want the air pressure here to be equal to the air pressure outside. If there's differences in air pressure, your middle ear isn't going to conduct sound very well. Oh, there we said that word, conduct. What does the outer ear and middle ear do? What's the purpose of the outer and the middle ears? The purpose of them, let's find out. Let's go make sure we go to the overview here. The purpose of the outer and the middle ears is simply to conduct sound and bring it to here. Always remember that. I'm going to make it bigger. I'm going to have a sip of my coffee here. Always remember, the purpose of the outer ear is just to gather sound and to resonate, act as a quarter wave resonator. The purpose of the middle ear is to take that sound further and bring it to here. Just like an electrical wire conducts electricity, just like a conductor on a train drives the train, okay? Conduction just means pathway, going. You're driving it. It's moving. It's conducting. Okay? So a blockage of wax due to the outer ear leads to a conductive hearing loss. A blockage of the middle ear due to uneven air pressure with air here versus outside will give a conductive hearing loss. A hearing loss caused by a physical blockage of sound getting to where it's got to go. And where has it got to go? To the inner ear. The inner ear is the center of the universe. It's all about this. If you don't have this, you're deaf. If you don't have this, you have a hearing loss. If you don't have this, you have a hearing loss. You'll have a percent of hearing will be gone. But if you don't have this, you got nada. It's all about the cochlea. The cochlea, C-O-C-H-L-E-A, inner ear. That changes sound waves into electricity. And electricity is the language your brain understands. So, outer ear, middle ear, problems there lead to a mechanical, physical blockage of sound getting to where it's got to go. Conductive hearing losses are fixable. Conductive hearing losses can be fixed by medicine, by surgery, by medical treatment, and then the hearing is normal again. Inner ear hearing loss is called sensory neural hearing loss, SENSORI-NEURAL, sensory neural. And sensory neural hearing loss is permanent. You can't fix it. If it's there for the rest of your life. You can make it not get worse, but you can't repair and fix it. Just think of Humpty Dumpty, sat on the wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. Okay, all the king's horses and men couldn't put Humpty together again. That's why hearing aids are called hearing aids. They're like a cane for a bad knee. They help, but they don't replace the real McCoy. And the real McCoy is the inner ear, the intact inner ear. Always contrast vision to hearing loss. Always, always, always. When you know who you're not, you have a better idea of who you are. We are not opticians. We are not optometrists. The eye is very simple. Light goes through, and it's got to hit the retina, the back of your eye. And the retina is like the cochlea. It's like the inner eye. The retina changes light into electricity. But in vision loss, it's not the retina that's destroyed. The retina is just fine. Your eyeball is too long or too short, so light isn't getting to the retina properly. So you wear these to redirect the light so it goes to the retina properly. So it's focused on the retina right. And once that happens, God's in his heaven and all's well with the world. See, vision loss is mostly conductive. The light isn't getting to where it's got to go. So you wear lenses to correct that conductive vision loss. In our case, only 5% of hearing loss is conductive. Only 5% of hearing loss is caused by outer ear wax or middle ear problems. 95% of hearing loss is caused by damage to the inner ear or cochlea, that snail-shaped organ. And we will spend at least 4 weeks in anatomy, after your midterm especially, on the cochlea, because that's the heart and soul of hearing. Meanwhile, for now, let's share screen and continue where we were talking about the middle ear. So we'll get rid of this guy here, and we'll go to your middle ear notes. Here we are, closed middle ear space. Another thing about the middle ear, eustachian tube is closed unless forced open. Well, that has everything to do with the fact that the middle ear space is closed. And look at this, it's lined with a mucus layer and surrounded by porous mastoid bone. Now remember that word mastoid, circle it, because when you're looking at a picture of the middle ear, I'll bring it closer. The mastoid bone is holy. No, it's full of holes. It's got lots of holes in it. See where my cursor is? It's porous. It's the same as, let's see, no, I'll share again, but let's just share a different particular picture. So let's get rid of this one and look at the outer ear. And we'll go up, 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 up. There you go. And look at the porous mastoid bone here too. See all the holes in it? And put your finger behind your ear, feel that bone? That's also mastoid bone. It's very porous. The word they use for that is pneumatic, like pneumonia. P-N-E-U-M-A-T-I-C, pneumatic, okay? Pneumonia, they call it that because the air sacs in your lungs are infected. Little holes that get filled with air, okay? Because your lungs have tiny little air sacs inside of them. Pneumonia, okay? So the mastoid bone is porous, unlike the other half of the mastoid bone, or of the temporal bone. Remember, the temporal bone has two parts. So if we go to your original part here, overview of the entire ear, and we move on down to show you here. So this picture here is actually not too correct. They're showing it like the mastoid bone is porous all the way around. That's not true. Only the outer half is called the mastoid bone, and it's full of holes. This picture here is showing it to you also rather inaccurately, okay? This part here is the mastoid bone, and it is porous. This part here is called the petrous portion. Peter, the rock, P-E-T-R-O-U-S, Petrus, Petrus. Petra is Greek for hard. And that's the petrous portion of the temporal bone, the mastoid portion of the temporal bone. Always remember that. The temporal bone, what the heck is that? Let's look what the temporal bone is. See, we've got a picture of that. Whoa, there, temporal bone. The whole side of your skull. Temporal bone pulled away. Now, if I could take this temporal bone here and turn it sideways so you could see it, the inner half is called the petrous portion, and it's very hard and dense. No holes in it. It surrounds part of the middle ear space and the cochlea. The mastoid portion of the temporal bone is porous. It surrounds what? The outer ear canal, part of it, and part of the middle ear space. So the outer half, the inner half. The whole thing together, temporal bone. Mastoid, holy, petrous portion, not holy. Okay, just want to make sure we've all got our ducks in a row that way. Okay, now we'll go back over to here. Look at our, whoops, we want the picture of the middle ear. Here you go. So, and our notes, here. You have the middle ear ossicles, the malleus, incus, and stapes, and the ligaments holding them in their place. What does that look like? The malleus, incus, stapes, they're all stuck together. Now realize they operate as a unit. It's not like one bone hits the other bone and the other bone hits the other bone. They're stuck together like a unit. So the whole thing acts as a unit. What does? The eardrum, malleus, incus, and stapes. They sometimes call this the ossicular chain. The ossicular chain. Ossicles is the word for bone. The ossicular chain of the middle ear, Malleus incus stapes, and the eardrum is also stuck on to the manubrium of the malleus. You'd have to tear it off. Okay, it's stuck on there. Good. Now, these are the ligaments. Look at a ligament here, and that's holding the ossicular chain in place. And then you have two muscles. Okay, so here's ligament, 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 holding the ossicular chain in place, but we're not done yet. What do the notes say? The notes say you've also got two middle ear muscles. Stapedius muscle, tensor tympani muscle. Now the stapedius muscle and tensor tympani muscle. Let's describe what we mean by that. What are muscles? Well, in your arm, how big is your muscle? Okay. Muscles move limbs. Muscles contract things. But how do muscles get their message? They get their message from the brain. And how does the brain talk to the muscles? By way of nerves. So nerves connect the brain to muscles. That's what we mean by the term innervated. Because one muscle, another muscle, muscles in my fingers to make my fingers bend, muscles in my neck to make my head turn. Okay? Muscles are given messages by way of nerves. So nerves are like tiny little highways whereby the brain talks to the muscles and tells the muscles what to do. And muscles only contract. Muscles don't stretch. Okay? If I'm bending my fingers this way, it means these muscles contracted. If I straighten my fingers, it means muscles here contracted. Okay? To straighten out my hand. So anyway, in your middle ear, each middle ear, you have two muscles. One's the tensor tympani muscle, and the other one's called the stapedius muscle. Now you can tell that the stapedius muscle, where do you think it's attached? To the stapes. So I guess the tensor tympani muscle ain't attached to the stapes. It's attached to another bone. And what's it attached to? The malleus. So you've got the incus is not attached to any of those two muscles. Just one muscle's attached to the stapes, the other muscle's attached to the malleus. Let's look at a picture. We're going real nice and easy through this. Nice and slow. The best way to go. Because we've got time. So here we are. So now you're looking at ligament, 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 ligament. Here's the tensor tympani muscle attached to the malleus. And here's the stapedius muscle attached to the stapes. Now notice that the stapedius muscle is smaller than the tensor tympani muscle. But you know what? The stapedius muscle is the strongest. It's the smallest, but the strongest. So now let's review what we've covered regarding the middle ear and its pieces and parts. The middle ear consists of the inner skin lining of the tympanic membrane, the entire middle ear space, the lining, okay, so the room, with the walls of the room, so to speak, and what's behind the walls of the room of the middle ear space, the porous mastoid bone, and also part of the petrous bone. So the middle ear is kind of half surrounded by the petrous bone and partly surrounded by the mastoid bone. The middle ear is kind of where the petrous portion of the temporal bone meets the mastoid portion of the temporal bone. So the mastoid soft porous portion covers the outer ear and part of the middle ear space. The petrous portion of the temporal bone covers the part of the middle ear space and surrounds the cochlea. Good. Then we've got the eustachian tube that lets new air come into the middle ear space, because the middle ear space if left to its own devices, the middle ear space constantly absorbs oxygen. It's always absorbing oxygen. And if no new air is allowed up into that middle ear space, you're going to get a vacuum. Because if this lining of the middle ear space is constantly absorbing oxygen and no new air is getting up through the eustachian tube, your eardrum is going to get sucked back. You're going to have a vacuum. And now you've got uneven air pressure from behind the eardrum to outside the eardrum. You'll have middle ear pathology, a middle ear disorder, and it will lead to middle ear infection. Okay, so eustachian tube, looking here, lets new air come into the middle ear space. Then you have the middle ear bones themselves, called the ossicles, malleus, incus, and stapes, and the ligaments. And then you have the two middle ear muscles, the stapedius muscle, innervated by or talked to from the brain by means of the seventh cranial nerve. Now remember, you have, or maybe not, maybe you will remember, maybe you don't, but very first day of class, we went through the whole overview of the ear. And if you look in your notes from the peripheral, the whole ding-donged outer ear, if I have them pulled up here, and I don't, so what I'm going to do is make sure they are pulled up. Here we go. Open this guy up. Open up the notes of the overview of the entire ear from Unit 1. And we move on down, and we'll take a look here. Eighth cranial nerve. We have 12 pairs of cranial nerves. This is from Unit 1, first day of class. Okay, and you don't have to go and rummage through. Just kind of follow this and look at it. You have 12 pairs, okay, 12 pairs of cranial nerves. Cranium is your skull. You know what your spinal cord is? When your spinal cord enters your skull, it's called the brain stem. How long is your brain stem? About this long. Okay, and off of your brain stem, so your spinal cord has gone up your back, you're inside your skull, and now you're at your brain stem. And the brain stem being about 1 inch long, so it's just the spinal cord inside the skull now. You've entered the skull. And so you've got that brain stem about like my finger here, and you've got 12 pairs of nerves, 12 here and 12 there. They're radiating out sideways. And those 12 pairs, one pair's for the eyes, another pair's for the ears, another pair's for the tongue, another pair's for this, another pair's for that, whatever. You got 12 pairs of these ding-dong nerves. One pair is for moving your cheeks, you know, so whatever. All you got these pairs of nerves. Now, 3 of them deal with our ears. The 8th pair, and they always call it by Roman numerals, VIII. Okay, but the eighth pair of those 12, it's the nerve that runs from the cochlea to the brainstem. It carries all information from the cochlea or inner ear to the brainstem. Okay, so it's brain going. You snip that nerve, you're deaf. It's the same thing as killing off your inner ear. Same thing. Okay, so you snip that thing and you're complete. You've blocked the highway of information getting to the brain, so you're deaf in that ear. And that does happen. It's called retrocochlear pathology. It's an 8th nerve tumor. And if a doctor removes the 8th nerve tumor many times, the ear is deafened for good. Well, better to be deaf in one ear than to be dead. Okay, so whatever. Now, the other 2 cranial nerves that are involved with hearing are the 5th pair and the 7th pair. The 5th pair innervates or goes to the tensor tympani muscle. The 7th pair, one arm of it goes to the stapedius, or goes to the stapedius muscle, which pulls on the stapes. So 2 of the pairs are involved in the pulling of those muscles. They activate the tensor tympani muscle and they activate the stapedius muscle. And that activation of those muscles is called the acoustic reflex. Now, what is a reflex? A reflex is when you didn't think about anything happening at all. It's just happened. So you touch your hand on a hot stove and You don't even think, oh, I should probably remove my hand. You just, as soon as your hand feels the heat, or you have your legs crossed and a doctor taps your knee with a light hammer and your foot shoots out, a reflex, okay? Or you're blinking or something, you didn't think about it, it just happened without you thinking about it. It's a reflex. Loud sounds cause the acoustic reflex. When you talk, you remember we said the occlusion effect and all that stuff? When you talk, you hear yourself through bone conduction. You hear yourself differently than other people hear you. So let's just kind of go to our notes now. Let's look at this carefully. In our notes, when we looked at the outer ear. So when you look at the outer ear, overview, middle ear, outer ear, look at this. Remember this stuff from last week? Tape recorded voice. Why does a recording of your own voice sound weird only to you? And you don't like recording of your own voice, but others say it sounds just like you. Remember we talked about that last week? It's because others hear you only by air conduction, sound waves traveling through the air. You hear yourself that way as well, but also through the bone. So you hear yourself louder than other people hear you. You hear yourself by air conduction, sound waves going from your mouth to your ears, but also by means of, stop sharing, by means of bone conduction. So others hear you by sound waves traveling through the air. You hear yourself that way too, but also through the bone of your skull, which has mass. So lows resonate with mass. You hear yourself deeper and more richly. Your voice sounds more rounded to you. When you hear yourself by tape or by recording, you sound more tinny, a little bit kind of not quite the same. So you think, oh, I sound like that? Yeah, that's exactly what you sound like, other people say. Because other people don't hear you by bone conduction, they hear you by the sound waves reaching their ears. So when you're listening to a recording of your voice, you are hearing yourself for the first time as other people hear you, like it or not. Now, when you hear yourself by air and bone conduction, we said you sound more deep and rich, but you also sound louder. And because you sound louder, that's going to cause an acoustic reflex. So your acoustic reflexes are constantly kicking those little muscles to tighten your middle ear bones so that you don't hear yourself quite as well while you talk. Your acoustic reflex makes your middle ear tighter than it usually is because it pulls on those bones, the three bones. It makes your ossicular chain not work as well, just temporarily, just while you're talking. And it allows you to hear better while you are talking because it dulls the loudness of your own voice. That's why you have an acoustic reflex. So we'll talk more about this on the oncoming weeks. I'm just kind of giving you an overview of the middle ear and the stuff and pieces from which it's comprised and what it does. So there's that occlusion effect. There's the stuff about the recording voice, but here I'm tying it to the acoustic reflex, not the occlusion effect. Occlusion effect is one thing, okay? But the fact that you hear yourself louder to yourself than other people, okay, that's going to explain why lows cause an occlusion effect, but also it explains why you have an acoustic reflex. Okay, so you've got this little paragraph here to address the occlusion effect in this section on the outer ear, but right now I'm talking to you about the fact that you hear yourself louder than other people hear you. Okay, you hear yourself by air and bone. I'm tying that more together with the acoustic reflex in the unit regarding the middle ear. So here we go, back to the middle ear now. So there's your two muscles, innervated by the 7th cranial nerve and the 5th cranial nerve. So those are two muscles of the brain talking to those muscles, whereas the 8th cranial nerve, see my fingers, 8 of them, the 8th cranial nerve takes information from my inner ear and sends it to my brain. So the 8th cranial nerve is brain going, and the 5th and 7th cranial nerves, a branch of each of those nerves goes from the brainstem to those muscles. See? So the eighth cranial nerve is brain going, and the fifth and seventh cranial nerves are brain exiting. It's a two-way street. One's going to the brain, one's going from the brain. And the words to know for that, brain going means afferent, A-F-F-E-R-E-N-T, afferent, think at, afferent. Efferent, think exit, E-F-F-E-R-E-N-T, afferent, efferent, okay? So brain going information is usually sensory, vision, smell, taste, hearing, touch. That's info going to your brain. Info going from your brain to the muscles is efferent. Afferent, sensory, efferent, motor. Sensory, motor. Afferent, efferent. Brain going, brain exiting. Eighth cranial nerve is a sensory nerve. It's taking info from the inner ear, bringing it to your brain stem. The little finger. So the eighth pair out of the 12, the eighth pair is the hearing nerve, auditory. But then the fifth cranial nerve and the seventh cranial nerves, those are involved with the acoustic reflex. Not the whole fifth. The fifth nerve just sends a branch to the tensor tympani. And the seventh cranial nerve sends one of its branches to the stapedius muscle. Okay? Tensor tympani muscle gets innervated by the fifth cranial nerve. Stapedius muscle gets innervated by the seventh cranial nerve. There's our little synopsis. Share screen. Go to the notes of the middle ear. Here we go. The parts of the middle ear. Here we go. And then we'll make the session done for today. Parts of the middle ear. Recall the temporal bone has two parts. The soft mastoid portion, hard petrous portion. There you go. Look at what we've covered. This next section, just think sugar cube. Okay, 2 cubic centimeters, small. Kind of like, what's a centimeter? About like your fingernail. So just think of a cube about the size of your fingernail. Please don't think you have to memorize this, because I don't care. Mucous membrane surrounds or lines the middle ear space, including the inside of your drum and the eustachian tube. The jugular vein is very close below the floor of your middle ear space. And jump down here to carotid artery. Sits around near your middle ear space as well. Now let's look at the difference between veins and arteries. Veins carry bluish blood, kind of dark, like a purpley blood. Arteries carry bright red crimson blood. Arteries take blood away from your heart. Your heart is pumping blood to the muscles of your body, to all the organs of your body, and that blood is full of oxygen because it got that oxygen from your lungs. So it's carrying oxygen to all the parts of your body. When the parts of your body have used that oxygen, now the blood is no longer red. The redness in your blood, the bright redness, is caused by the blood being filled with oxygen. But when your body has used that oxygen, the blood has got to go back to your heart now to get replenished. And it goes back to your heart by way of veins. So arteries exit the heart, veins take info back to the heart. So when you put your finger on your wrist to feel your pulse, the pulse you feel is from an artery. Arteries, you feel the pulsing, the boom, 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 boom. Veins don't. Veins are sluggish, carrying the blood back. Okay? Just something to know. So the jugular vein is a big vein near the middle ear space. It happens to be returning blood back to the heart from the head, whatever. The carotid artery is another big blood vessel, but it's an artery. And it's also near the middle ear space. So you have a large vein and a large artery near the middle ear space. Just FYI, these are all pieces and parts. Back to the notes. Epitympanic recess Aditus ad antrum. What the Sam Hill are those? Those are just spaces. Just spaces. See, anatomy calls not just things, but anatomy also labels spaces. So the epitympanic recess is the middle ear space just above your eardrum and malleus, whereas the aditus ad antrum is the area above your incus and stapes. So let's look at a picture. Bring this up here. Epitympanic recess would be here, above your malleus and your eardrum. Epitympanic recess is here. It's the space above your incus and your stapes. Aditus ad antrum, epitympanic recess. I don't know what this space is called. Who knows? But whatever. Just so you know, you'll see these words once in a while mentioned. So these are pieces and parts. So we've got covered that. Chorda tympani nerve. It's a branch of the seventh cranial nerve. And see, the seventh cranial nerve isn't only involved in pulling the stapedius muscle. The seventh cranial nerve is also involved in the pulling of your cheeks. So that's why I said a branch of your seventh cranial nerve goes to your stapedius muscle. And a branch of the fifth cranial nerve innervates the tensor tympani muscle, okay? Because nerves have many, many different branches. Okay, back to share screen. Let's make sure we've got it. By Jove. So the chorda tympani nerve is a branch of the facial nerve that happens to pass through the middle ear space, and sometimes it can get in the way of surgery in the middle ear. It carries taste information from the front 2/3 of one side of your tongue. Weird, huh? The inner ear wall is the medial wall of the closed middle ear space. Now think of lateral and medial. Lateral means the sides, medial means the center. Okay, so whenever you see the word medial in anatomy, it means toward the center. Lateral means toward the sides. So now let's look at the middle ear space in terms of lateral and medial. Go to the picture here and here. Make it larger. Okay, come on, you can do it. Here we go. There. Medial wall, lateral wall. Now the medial wall has a couple of very important landmarks. So here we go. Looky, looky. The foot plate of the stapes, how does it connect to the cochlea? It ends in what's called the oval window, because this is sort of shaped like an oval. And then you have something under here called the round window. Now, these are the communications from the middle ear to the inner ear. So if you push the stapes into the round window, or into the oval window, the round window will bulge out. Follow my cursor. And if you pushed on the round window in, this would bulge out. There's a trade-off of information that way. Okay? So when the oval pushes in, the round bulges out. If you pushed on the round, the oval would bulge out. So the oval and round windows interact that way. And that's how movement of the bones, jiggling back and forth, that's how it activates the cochlea. And the cochlea, the inner ear, is filled with fluid. The middle ear space, air. The cochlea, fluid. Middle ear space, air. Cochlea, fluid. Middle ear, air. Why do I repeat that all the time? Because one of the purposes of the middle ear is to help airborne sound activate a fluid-filled cochlea. Imagine your head is underwater. You're at a swimming pool, and I'm standing at the edge of the swimming pool, and you're swimming underwater. If I yell at you, are you going to hear me? No, my voice is going to bounce off the water. Water is a different medium from air. my sound will reflect. It's going to bounce off the water. So how is sound going to, excuse me, activate a fluid-filled cochlea? It's able to do so because of the middle ear. How does that work? Put your hand against your face. You've got your whole hand against your face. Now, press really hard against your hand, against your face. Now stop. Now put your finger against your cheek. Now press really hard. This one hurt. This one doesn't. That's why you have a middle ear. Pressure is force over an area. So the force of sound over the large eardrum gets converged onto the point of the middle ear. And what point is that? The stapes. Let's look at it in a picture. And then we'll just about be ready to go today. Here we go. Look at how big the eardrum is. Look at how small the stapes is. So sound hitting a great big area, that force is now converged onto a small area. Now that's increased the pressure of sound. Think about it. That's how a nail can get into wood. Okay, because it's a thin little point. If you were laying on your back watching TV with your arms here like this and you're watching TV and I'm your roommate and I walk up and take a cinder block and lay it on your tummy, you're going to go, "Ugh, get that off of me." But if I had a nail on the bottom of that cinder block and put it on you, the nail's going to puncture you and you'll die. Okay? Pressure is force over an area. That's how a knife can cut through bread. The force of your arm against a thin little razor sharp thing can cut into. So you have a middle ear to help airborne sound get into or activate a fluid-filled cochlea. And really sound doesn't go into the cochlea. Sound's just got to make fluids move inside the cochlea. So sound waves have to make fluid waves inside the cochlea. Sound waves, remember in acoustics, are longitudinal. Water waves are transverse. Remember that from acoustics? Well, sound waves have to create transverse waves in the cochlea because the cochlea is filled with fluid. So that's why we cover this stuff in acoustics. It deals with anatomy quite a bit. So the middle ear takes condensation and rarefacted sound waves and it changes them into mechanical piston-like energy, the movement of the little ossicular chain. And that mechanical energy is taken in by the cochlea and it's changed into fluid energy. And you've got fluid waves. And those fluid waves are called traveling waves. Inside the cochlea, traveling waves. And then the tiny hair cells inside of your cochlea take those traveling waves and they change that energy into electricity and sends it up the 8th cranial nerve to the brain. So here's a review. Sound waves, longitudinal, condensation, rarefaction, hit the drum. The middle ear takes those and it changes it, transduces it is the word, transduce, T-R-A-N-S-D-U-C-E. Transduce means to change energy from one form into another form. So the middle ear takes longitudinal sound waves, compressions and rarefaction, and transduces those into transverse. No, I should say the middle ear transduces those sounds into mechanical energy. And the mechanical piston-like energy, the movement of the middle ear ossicles, is taken by the cochlea, and that's transduced into transverse waves, fluid waves. And the tiny hair cells inside the cochlea take those transverse water waves and change that energy into electricity and sends it up the 8th nerve to the brain. And the middle ear also, what they say is, overcomes the impedance mismatch. Oh, what's this impedance crap? Well, we heard that in 110 as well. Impedance is opposition to the passage of sound. Well, if the middle ear is filled with air, it can easily be activated by airborne sound. So there's no impedance mismatch there. But the cochlea or inner ear is filled with fluid. And if you have your head under a pool and I'm talking to you from the edge of the pool, my airborne voice is going to bounce off of the water. I've got an impedance mismatch between air and fluid. So the middle ear overcomes that impedance mismatch because the area of the drum is way bigger than the foot plate of the stapes. And pressure is force over an area. So the middle ear does two things: transduces sound waves into mechanical energy and overcomes the impedance mismatch between air and fluid. We'll talk more about that, of course, next week, but this was your slow introduction to an overview of the middle ear. And we covered a lot of kind of review of the outer ear and kind of looking a little bit into the future regarding the cochlea, and we're always going to take really good care to do that because that's very important. If you want a little bit of an overview as to what those hair cells look like inside a cochlea, all we need to do there is just go to the early unit, outer ear overview, and we'll go way over here. Here's hair cells inside your cochlea. So hair cells that would be inside of your cochlea are going to be, here's your cochlea, here's your cochlea, and in this little blue area here, that's where the hair cells are located. See, here's your eardrum, malleus, incus, stapes. Here they're calling them hammer, anvil, and stirrup. We won't do that anymore. Oval window, round window, balance organs, which we'll cover a little bit. And remember, this bone is not porous all over here. A lot of diagrams are meant for the lay public. You and I should know better. Mastoid portion of the temporal bone has lots of holes. Petrous portion of the temporal bone does not. Okay? Anyway, and here's the eighth nerve, taking info from the cochlea, bringing it to the brain. So the middle ear takes condensation and rarefacted sound waves, transduces them into mechanical piston-like energy, and overcomes the impedance mismatch between air and water, because look at how big the drum is compared to the foot plate of that stapes. And inside of this cochlea are fluid waves that are created by the mechanical movement of these bones, pushing in the oval window, bulging out the round window, pushing in the oval window, bulging out the round window. And you got this little bump in between. They call that the promontory. We'll talk more about that next week. It just separates the oval from the round windows. And here's the eighth cranial nerve taking info to the brain. Carrying on here. Well, this is a nice picture here too. Eardrum, malleus, incus, stapes, ligament, and then tensor tympani muscle and stapedius muscle. Smaller but stronger, bigger but weaker, but both of these muscles together create what? The acoustic reflex. And what's the acoustic reflex for? It tightens the middle ear ossicles, making the middle ear temporarily less efficient at passing sound through. Why do you want that? Because your own voice is louder than it is to other people. It's louder to you. And the acoustic reflex dulls the loudness of your own voice by contracting when you are talking. It also contracts when you are eating chips. It also will contract with loud sounds from outside. Loud sounds from outside will also cause the acoustic reflex. So we'll talk much more about all of this next week. Oh yeah, and as we carry on and get into the cochlea, of course, there's the hair cells. Normal and damaged. Normal, damaged. And damaged hair cells cause sensory neural hearing loss. Okay. I think we've done enough for today. The hour is up. I will stop recording and we'll check you out. We'll see you when I look at you. All right. Bye for now.